I sum up what happened, the show captured the imaginations of people because it allowed older viewers to remember back on a time in their life when they were young and they were doing these things, and it allowed the people who were actually the age of the characters to say, "Wow, this is kind of what's going on in our life right now." And to the people younger than that, it sort of gave them an idea as to what maybe getting older and the opportunities and the challenges that life was going to throw at them. I think more so than a lot of the other shows that came out at the same time we did, we took realistic inroads to these characters, and that was the trick. I mean, there were 13 shows on the air that were high school related when we debuted. By the end of the season, we were the only one.
Hard to believe it's been 35 years since Beverly Hills 90210 first hit the airwaves, October 4th, 1990. And now, in celebration of that anniversary, Paramount is dropping something special. All 10 seasons, fully remastered in 4K Ultra HD, available digitally for the first time on October 20th. I thought it was the perfect time to pull something classic from my own vault. An interview with the late, great Luke Perry, recorded around 1998, right after he returned to 90210. He had left the show a few years earlier to take on other roles, and in this conversation, we talk about why he came back, what made Dylan McKay such an enduring character, and why the show connected so deeply with its fans then, and still does now. So, listening back, you can hear Luke's humility, his humor, his sense of perspective about fame and storytelling. It's a reminder of how grounded he was, even when the world saw him as a pop culture icon. Here's my full, unedited, 11-minute conversation with Luke Perry, as real and revealing as it gets. This is Classic Conversations, the 90210 edition.
Hi, good morning. I'm David Duchovny.
You just better stop that right now. All right, so I'm going to go a little generic on you, but
Cool.
just,
I'll be equally generic.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're my man.
You are Luke Perry, right?
My name is Luke Perry.
I like how you step into the mic. That's good. All right, so the obvious question, don't even say it. But one of the obvious questions is, how did this all happen? How did you end up coming back to 90210?
They asked, I answered. It was that simple. It was something that had been brought up a couple of times in the past, and it just never seemed like the right time, personally or professionally. I was either doing something else, or I go through periods where I just don't want to work. I want to do other things in life, and they would catch me at those times. And this time, the stars all lined up. It was a good time for me. It was a good time for them. So we're back in business.
Was there anything specific that said this time it's okay? I'm feeling good about it. It's about time, or
I think the show is at a really great place in that the challenge here, and one of the reasons I left earlier was I wasn't really feeling very challenged by the material. I think the challenge here is to innovate and to change and to really create new directions for this show to go in. The characters have aged significantly. We no longer owe any sort of moral allegiance to a high school or college mindset. These are adult characters in the adult world, and my guy has been around. He has clocked some miles and done some things, and I think that now we'll be able to take a more well-rounded look at these people.
can you talk a little bit about Dylan McKay? I mean, we used to get asked this question all the time. Describe your character. Now he's a little older. So give us a little insight to maybe what we'll be seeing this year.
I think we're picking him up at a bad spot in his life. I don't think he would be coming back to Beverly Hills if he wasn't. I think that when people are out there in the world and you get wounded in all the different ways that life can wound one, at some point you get beat up and you got to crawl home, And I think for this guy who has lost anybody who's ever been close to him, had serious problems with alcohol and other substances, and just can't seem to get any elbow room in this world. He's a difficult guy. Not like me. I'm pretty happy-go-lucky. I don't have any of those big problems he's got. But it's real interesting for me to bring a character into this world of all these other characters who have certainly had their problems and things don't always go right for them, but they pale in comparison to what's going on with this guy. And I think for him to bring that to the party could, it'd be interesting to see Dylan as the antagonist, who says, "Oh, you guys think, you sit around here and you bitch and you moan and you think life's a problem because, your Ferrari's not running right or whatever, but there's real stuff going on out there." And my guy's had a taste of it.
What about getting back into character? Can you talk a little bit about getting back into the skin of Dylan?
It's funny you asked that question. My palms start to sweat. It's a difficult character for me to play. It just is. It requires for me to go to places that I just don't really dig, you know? And I think it's funny, but the only time he's really working is when it's when he's really kicking in three-dimensional is when it's the darker stuff, the less happy, more intricate, complex things in life, or when you really start to see who this guy is. He ain't one for sitting around at the party and having a good time, and that just isn't his deal.
But one of the things you did mention out there about that you're excited, it's fun doing this. What is it about, this whole, maybe working with Aaron or, just that's so fun about this whole gig?
Well, on the set, it's not like you're always afraid the other foot's gonna drop. People are pretty comfortable. We know the show's not getting canceled this year. It's not, there's a comfort level there that I think we need to take advantage of to notch the show up one creatively. Turn up the gas, raise the chips, make this show about something it's never been about before. I think that's the opportunity that's in front of us now, and that is the opportunity I think that we're all looking forward to jumping on.
You gave a great answer outside about talking about the fact,
I hope you recorded it because they're few and far between.
I'm with you, about the fact that there's some new cast members coming in, there's some old ones and close ones that are leaving. Can you comment a little bit about Jason and, maybe the energy level of what is going to happen now?
Well, I'll tell you, there will definitely be less energy on that set because Jason has more energy than anybody I have ever seen. When Jay walks in a room, he takes it over. He really does. I mean, he's got a lot of energy. I've always been a little more reserved. It's different with me. I'm gonna miss him because a lot of that show for a long time seemed to me that Jason and I were the focus of a lot of what was going on with the show. And the thing that I will never forget is Jay was on the show before me. He was in the pilot and I was not. And when I was asked to come on and to stay on, most people in that situation would have had a real problem with them bringing in a guy who was, obviously better looking. Um, no, bringing in someone else. And Jason welcomed me with open arms and said, "Hey, man, come on down and let's have a good time." And there was never any, I'm pissed because you're getting more of this, and I'm pissed because you're getting more publicity. We both realized early on people were going to try to create problems for us. We made a pact. We would never let that shit come between us, and it never did.
What about, when I initially interviewed you, beginning with that was in the height, like kind of when we were still on that ride. You've had a few years now to kind of look back and be able to. Can you sum up what happened?
Can I sum up what happened? The show captured the imaginations of people because it allowed older viewers to remember back on a time in their life when they were young and they were doing these things, and it allowed the people who were actually the age of the characters to say, wow, this is kind of what's going on in our life right now. And to the people younger than that, it sort of gave them an idea as to what maybe getting older and the opportunities and the challenges that life was going to throw at them. I think more so than a lot of the other shows that came out at the same time we did, we took realistic inroads to these characters, and that was the trick. I mean, there were 13 shows on the air that were high school related when we debuted. And by the end of the season, we were the only one.
What is it about the show? I mean, you're coming back on a show that's still doing well. What is it about the show that's enabled it to kind of, in a sense, keep the initial folks?
I've always believed that it's a character-driven show. I think people are interested in these characters and these actors. Not to discredit the writers or anything like that, but I don't necessarily think people are tuning in to see the stories. They want to see these people. And I still believe that. I believe that, all the actors there work hard and that not to say that the writers don't, but ultimately I think if you walk down the street and you talk to people about stuff, they don't necessarily remember all the plot points and this and that, but they do know whose character was with who and what they said and, and how they relate to one another. And I think people are sort of looking in between the lines to see what the relationships are like between these people.
Well, it's funny because all the questions I was listening, they're all asking about Brenda and Dylan and all this. And did you get a kick out of that, or
Out of
just hearing these questions from the journalists?
Oh, in some respect I do, but don't you think it's kind of the obvious question? And nobody likes to be asked obvious questions. But Brenda and Dylan, will it ever happen? I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy. But I do know that if you live long enough, you will see everything. So it's entirely possible.
All right, you signed an overall production deal with Fox. What are we going to see, outside of Beverly Hills 90210? What do you want to do?
The deal calls for development of multiple series. I'd like to try the half hour, take a whack at making people giggle a little bit. I like 1 hour drama. I appreciate the structure of it. I understand how it works. So I think that that's my stronger suit. But, I'm all about taking risks, man, taking them chances. And I think a half hour would be that for me. They do a lot of movies at Fox. They do small movies, Fox 2000. They do big movies, that's great for me. It's one-stop shopping. Fox is like, it's like the Walmart of show business. You go in there and they just make everything.
And the last question is outside interests, because we used to ask this in the beginning. What are they now? Outside of acting, what are some of your other interests is my last question.
Outside of acting, my other interests are, horses, fishing, basically that.
Horses and fishing?
Horses, fishing. I'm so boring. I am. I'd love to be able to tell you about bar fights and rehab and all that, but this just ain't in the picture. I'm boring. I work and I go home.
Riding or racing?
Both. You name it.
8 seconds did it on you, didn't it?
Oh, I had a good time on that picture. I mean, my body will never be the same, but I had a great time on that movie. And part of it has stuck with me, yeah.
Luke, thanks a lot, bro.
Oh, my pleasure. Whenever it's good for you, let me know and we'll sit down.
Listening back to that, I'm reminded why Luke Perry was always one of my favorite people to interview. I actually sat down with him before 90210 even took off, back when nobody really knew his name yet. And even then, he had that mix of charm, confidence, and humility that never changed. Over the years, I caught up with him a bunch of times for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for 8 seconds. I actually still remember New Line Cinema flying me out to Fort Worth, Texas for that one. They took us to Billy Bob's and even a real rodeo so we could experience that world firsthand. But the thing about Luke was, no matter how famous he got, he never carried himself like a star. He was just a real cool dude, one of us. And, at the end of this interview, he says to me, whenever is good for you, you let me know and we'll sit down. That was Luke, genuine, grounded, and always gracious. Luke Perry may be gone, but his spirit, his work, and his words live on. I miss him. Thanks for listening to this classic conversation. Stay tuned for more from the vault.